And I think I would like to say books saved me. And I would like to say that I don't have a lot of friends, so I resort to books. I have studied a lot, and I've done CS and I've done LLB and everything, but no institution was able to teach me that much stuff that books have.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us for this amazing discussion. Welcome back to Bookversations, a new playlist that I've started where I talk about books. I'm Alina, your host for the day, and today we have a very special guest joining us on the panel. She is not only an influencer, she is an inspiration for me in so many ways that you'll get to know today. So first of all, thank you so much, Prerika, for joining us today. It's a pleasure and an honor to be talking to you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a total pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm very excited about it.
I'm super excited to talk to you as well. And guys, before we move forward, I would just like to give you a brief introduction of who Prerika is and why I was so excited to talk to her. So Prerika is a travel influencer, and she travels to all of these amazing places that you can see on her Instagram. She has a very aesthetic feed, and you should definitely follow her. And she's recently been to Goa, and wow, it was such a delight watching her stories, watching her feed, watching her visit all of these beautiful places. But she's not only a travel influencer, she's a lot more than that. She reads books actively, and she also has a page called Emotional Fool where she posts about all the things she reads. And she also has a thrift page on Instagram. So all in all, she's an inspiration for me. I don't know how she manages all of this along with a full-time job. So thank you so much, Prerika, for joining me and for this discussion, for being an inspiration for me in so many ways. So how are you doing, and how has your life been after your trip from Goa?
I'm doing good. I think it's been a week now that I have come from Goa, and Goa trip was like it was kind of a breather, like amidst all the chaos. So now I feel more energized and more fresh. So it was a good idea to take a mini trip to Goa.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So now that you're talking about this mini trip and it acted as a breather for you, I've always been in the moment kind of a person. So whenever whenever I'm traveling to a place, I'm more like photo kyun leni hai? Let's just sit here and live in the moment kind of person. So how do you manage that? Like, how do you identify that this is something I want to click pictures of, and this is something that I'm going to live in the moment?
So I think I'm I'm that kind of a person who clicks everything. Like I'm very, let's click this. Like, oh wow, a sunset, moonrise. If you look at my gallery, you'll find more sunset, sunrise, and moonsets pictures than you will see mine. Or flower pictures. I like to click. I like to capture my everyday life also. Like if I'm doing yoga, I have every day's selfie of doing yoga.
I see that on
And
Instagram every day.
Yeah, and then I click a lot, like my plans. I like to click things, I like to paint, I like to record. So I record everything. I've always been like that. Like I remember my when I was on this trip, I was like 40. I must have been like 14 and 15, and I was on this trip with my parents to Kerala. And my father had this Kodak camera. I used to click so many pictures. Like he used to scold me कि इसका reel निकलवाना पड़ता है, तुम फालतू पिक्चर ले लेती हो, फिर वो reel निकल के आता है, and there is some पेड़ and पहाड़, क्योंकि उन लोगों को लगता था कि हमारे photos होने चाहिए ना. Like most of the people do that. So I'm very let's click it kind of a person. So that's not a really tough thing for me, honestly, because I am there in the moment. I think over the years I've also learned that, because first when I used to go to travel, I used to be like, because आपके दिमाग में होता है ना, you need that best shot. Oh my God, this
being a perfectionist is a pain.
Yeah. So like you have to click this perfectly, because क्योंकि nature के साथ सबसे अच्छी चीज है, it gets better and better. So if you have taken a shot of a sunset, which was amazing, after a while the sky will change its colors and it will be more amazing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing there was a time in my life when I used to just click, and I used to get exhausted. But I think after a while, a little bit of research before going, a little bit of research, like, okay, if I'm on a beach and, just scanning the whole beach and looking at some frames, it comes, it after a while it comes in your mind automatically. Okay, this is a good frame, this I have to click, this I have to so, and so you just click. So what I do is, right now, the first thing I go, if I go on the beach and there are some good frames, I'm going to click it. Then if there is sunset happening, most of the time I'm recording time lapse. So I'll just put my camera on a tripod, and my camera and I both look at the sunset at the same time, and both are in the moment. And basically, I have named my camera Gulnazar. So Gulnazar is like doing that
Wow.
for me.
Gulnazar is your best friend.
Yeah, Gulnazar and Yayavar. So I have two cameras and I've named both of
Wow.
them.
I would like to know the
So-
story behind the names. Like, did you come with these names like all of a sudden, or like what happened?
Gulnazar, so my husband suggested who was my boyfriend at that point of time, and he just said, I was looking for a name. I like to name things. Everything in my house has a name. Everything. Like, I
Wow.
once bought a cooler and I named her Sheetal. I have my hiking bag. And my father lost so much on it. So I have a hiking bag, okay, and it is known as Ganga. So Ganga, because उसमें सब कुछ आ जाता है, इतना कुछ आ जाता है that Ganga is too big ना. So I have named her Ganga. So whenever
Wow.
I
There's
think
even
of it,
meaning
like,
behind these names. I remember naming a bag, like I have a small bag I bought from Missouri when I went to a trip with my parents, and I named it Basanti for no reason. I was just like, I just wanted to name it.
sometimes it happens. Sometimes
Yeah.
you don't have the reason, and you just the name clicks and you have it. And the Yaya word. So my husband suggested Gulnazar, and I love the name so much because Gulnazar basically means having a very good eye to the things, and that is such a suitable name for camera.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's a very beautiful name. And then I named my GoPro Yayavar because Yayavar in Hindi means Gumakkar. So like it's a
Okay.
more, it's a synonym of Gumakkar, Yayavar. And there is a favorite book of my favorite writer, again, उनकी किताब है यायावर याद करेगा, something like यायावर करके. And
Okay.
so that was the first time I love this word Yayavar. So I named my GoPro Yayavar because he's a traveler, na? He's traveling with me or
Yeah.
everywhere I go. So that's how my camera names were there. So getting back to the question, so I try to just click on the things, and if I see something extraordinary, like I know that this has to be there, then only I again take out my camera. But other than that, I also want to live in the moment. And one thing I do is, whenever I'm traveling, I'm never like, I have to cover 10 points. Never. If I'm at one point and it feels, I'm connected to that place and it feels very good to be there, I will be there, leaving all my plans aside.
Oh, okay.
So
you're a mix of both. You're a mix of both.
Yeah,
You get covered.
So probably 1 hour I'm recording, 2 hours I'm sitting.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
nice.
So there is always some places that will be left wherever I'm going, because I remember I was at Chayal, and there is like the highest point in Chayal. There's a temple there, and there was this sunset happening, and I could feel the strong energy. I could feel the divine essence of like something is there. And we had a plan after that to go to so many places. I dished it all. I was just sitting there. I sat there for 2 hours after
Wow.
recording. It was like, so you just basically have to give more time to a place to be able to feel both the things. Like you record also, and then you feel the moment also. So that's one way of mine of managing things.
So, do you read like on your travels as well? Like, and if you, because I've seen you reading a lot as well on your Instagram. I often see that you're highlighting instances and paragraphs from books. That's amazing. And how do you find that balance between travel, reading, yoga for that matter, and your full-time job? So, I mean, how are you managing to do all of that?
Let me not romanticize that all. I
Okay.
do get exhausted sometimes. That's the truth. But most of the time, I do it because I really like it. Everything. So I've never been. My husband says that I have a multi-passion disorder. Okay.
Same.
And
Oh
I
my
think
God.
he's
Yeah, I think we need to discuss that like in a different video. Like, what is a
So
multifunction disorder?
yeah. So in general, I like to do a lot of things, and I I get bored with things very easily. And I like to learn everything. I want to learn everything. Like right now, you are talking about books. I want to create a in my head. I want to create a proper books, something with the books now. Because I am that kind of person. I sometimes feel like that I'm a thief. Like I want to steal whatever other people's are doing. So I'm that person, and I've tried to just shed that idea of not doing that, concentrating on one thing. But I've given up on that because I don't feel alive if I'm just doing one thing. I need to create an artistic day for me every day. I'm not kidding. I live a very artistic life and I live
I've
in
seen that.
like I'm in my own world. Okay. So as you said, like I do yoga, I do reading. Somehow over the years they all have become a very part of my being. And reading is like indelible part of my being. I mean, you just cannot take that away from me now, because I was not a reader at all. I started reading in my lowest times, and I think I would like to say books saved me. And I would like to say that I don't have a lot of friends, so I resort to books. And any no I have studied a lot, and I've done CS and I've done LLB and everything, but no institution was able to teach me that much stuff that books have taught me. So like
I
books are
absolutely
everything.
agree.
But I like books are everything to me. I'm not even exaggerating if I'm doing it. So I think whenever I'm at home, I read, because it is just like I will get up in the morning after an hour when I'm soaking in the sun. I'll pick my book. I'm going to read. Mostly those are mostly self-help books and motivational kind of books that I read in the morning. Before going to bed, I will read for an hour or half an hour. That again mostly like some non-fiction. But when I'm reading fiction, because I know I'm going to get lost in all that thing, I sit and sometimes I read for like 4 or 5 hours straight. So so reading has like, even if I'm not reading fiction every day, I'm reading non-fiction, or I'm reading a self-help book or something every day, because it's just like now my day is designed. But when I'm traveling, I always carry a book with me. I even if I don't read anything there, I carry it with me, because I just have. What if I feel like reading? What if I'm sitting in a cafe? Especially when I'm like solo traveling. What if I'm sitting in a cafe and I don't have anybody? What will I do? I will
Yeah.
read. So I always have it in my bag. But I don't make it a point in my travels like that. Reading is not my priorities on this, because I'm traveling. So there might come a day or two when I'm not reading, but most of the time, if I'm sitting in a very good location in a cafe alone, I'll pick my book. I read. I like my metro rides alone because I like to read.
Same.
And if I'm going
Yeah.
from Gurgaon to Noida, I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish so many chapters. So I don't want
Right.
people tag along with me. I'm going to say, नहीं 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 कोई जरूरत नहीं है, मैं अकेले चली जाऊंगी. So that's how I like manage. But in travels, I don't push myself like to कि मेरे को पढ़ना ही पढ़ना है. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. If there is a point that when I feel like reading, I'm going to read. But in my day to day life, reading is a very part of my daily activities. Like I start my day with reading, I end my day with reading. That's for sure.
That's amazing to know. So I want to know, like, I've seen that you read both in English and in Hindi, and I don't read in Hindi, by the way. So I tried reading one book, and I think I picked that up because you were reading it, called Tyag Patra. Tyag Patra. So you had
Oh my
posted
God.
about it on your WhatsApp, and I was like, this looks like an interesting read. I should just buy it, and I bought the book. I read like a couple of
Wow.
pages, and then I lost interest. Not because like the story wasn't good; it was very interesting. The way it was written was also hilarious. By the way, the first few pages are hilarious. But after that, I was like, yeah, I'm not able to connect, with the writer in this language, which is why it's still there on my shelf, but I haven't been able to finish it. So how do you manage, reading both in Hindi and in English? And do you find yourself in a fix sometimes that, किस language में पढूं?
Okay, so I love both the languages, honestly. But Hindi being my, my mother tongue. So I come from a Hindi medium school. Then I went to convent. So for me, as a child, when you are studying, you have a very strong imagination power. And so if you're studying in a convent where, speaking English is mandatory, so you are going to, imagine everything in English and speak everything in English and everything like that. But if you come from a Hindi school or Hindi background, I belong to a very rural area, like, so for me everything was like, if I'm communicating with myself, it was in Hindi and everything. So Hindi, for that reason, is a language that, I feel more connected, and I think that is why I'm able to write better in Hindi than English. But English is something, because I went to convent, and I told you I was not a reader at all. Okay, so my vocabulary, my grammar, it was very bad, very bad. So after, even like, I graduated, then I taught myself, then I started reading. So I started reading in English. But even that, I started with self-help books, I remember. And I used to like self-help books, but then, there are many classics that people talk about. Oh, like Pride and Prejudice, or, Animal Farm. Like, those are great books, okay? And everybody recommended it. So I used to buy them. And I was like, I'm not feeling a connection. It's such a tough language, and what is happening? So I used to, like, just, abandon those books. And I was like, no, maybe it's not for me. It's not for me. But I think over the years, when I started reading, I realized one thing: not every book is meant for every reader. And when, especially when you are starting, no matter which language is this, you have to pick the easiest book. So I remember reading fiction mein Chetan Bhagat. I started with 5 Point Someone.
Same. No, not exactly 5. Yes, I think I started with 5 Point Someone too. So that was the first novel I picked in class 9. So there was this scholastic fair, and that used to happen every year. So that was my first novel. But I think the habit of reading started way back in class 1 or 2, when, you had those summer vacations, and our teachers had forced us to pick a book, read a story, and narrate that in class, like narrate the summary of it. So that is when the reading habit got inculcated in the first place. But my first novel was also Chetan Bhagat. Like, I give all my credit of reading, of starting to read, to Chetan Bhagat.
I think most of us, like, I remember, I know people who started with Chetan Bhagat. I started with Chetan Bhagat, then I read Three Mistakes of My Life, and I loved them, at that point of time, because I've not read better literature or something like that. So the same thing happens with Hindi. So I did not used to read at Hindi at all. I think some 6 years back I started reading in Hindi, because I used to write in Hindi. Okay, so I met this incredible group of friends, like, which had my husband also in it. So I used to look at them, and they used to talk about those writers I have no clue about, and I used to feel so, so out of the place. Like, I am not the part of this intelligent group.
Yeah, I get it.
So my curiosity began. I'm like, अगर इन लोग के साथ बैठना है तो पढ़ना पड़ेगा. And that's how I started. So I think my Hindi reading journey has been very good. So I am again, I asked Dave, like, I want to start reading in Hindi. Which book should I pick? And he said to me, like, have you ever read in Hindi? Like, what kind of books you like? And I'm like, no, I have not. I haven't read in English that much, and I haven't read in Hindi. And मेरे साथ भी होता था कि मेरे को language बहुत tough लगती थी, because हम सबको हिंदी आती है, पर हमें क्लिष्ट हिंदी यानी कठिन हिंदी नहीं आती. ठीक है, तो मैंने कहा यार, मेरे को तो उसको पता था कि ये लिखने में भी बहुत गलतियां करती है हिंदी में, तो she is not that good in Hindi as she thinks she is. So he gave me this book, Ek Duniya Samanantar karke. It had only the short stories. So he said, start with short stories, and these are very easy. They are written in very, easy language. So just start with them, and whenever you will complete a story of like 10 pages, you will feel like that you have completed something. Upanyas yani novel. Novel is like a bigger commitment if you're starting in a Hindi language. And I think that's when I started reading, and for a very long time I just read short stories.
Yes, I've read. I remember studying short stories in school. So we used to have these, English mein bhi hota tha, treasure trove of short stories, and then you had the same thing in Hindi as well. I think ICSE students like read a lot of stuff. So Hindi mein I remember reading Premchand's stories also, and there was this one story, Do Gaz Zameen, that I remember very clearly. That was that left a mark on me. It was by Leo Tolstoy, I guess. And that same story was translated in English also. I don't know which language he wrote in, but I have read it in both languages. And I remember liking reading in Hindi, but commitment to reading in Hindi is not that much. Like, I cannot commit to reading in Hindi for a very long period of time. And like, one more thing I wanted to know, like, what would your tips be to people who have just started reading? So we have a lot of teenagers out there. We see a lot of people who are in the phase of, starting reading. And I get a lot of these questions from people as well. Bhai, how should I start reading? And what would you recommend me if I'm starting? So you've recommended a good book in Hindi by Sharat Chand, right? And I mean,
any book by Sharat Chand, start with it, or start with short stories. Like, I will say, Duniya Samanantar is a great book to start reading Hindi. Like, I started with it. So I think start with short stories. And if you want to read a novel, any novel by Sharat Chand, because he wrote Devdas. We all love Devdas, right? So
I did not know he wrote Devdas. I'm definitely going to pick it now. Because see, this is the connection that I look for when I look for books, that if I find a connection, I'm going to read it. Which is why I picked Matthew Perry's novel, which I guess is kept here only. Yeah. So I picked this book because I could connect with Chandler being from Friends.
And Friends.
Yes. So I never read autobiographies, memoirs, and things like that. I don't read non-fiction for that matter. I've picked a lot of books, but then I left them midway, and because at some point in time you lose interest. This was the first book I managed to finish because I could connect with the writer, because I knew that that this is the person. I've seen them on.
Sharat Chands are fictional because, of course, Devdas is fictional, but it seems real because so many things have been made, and he's like one of the best Bengalis. He was the best Bengali writer. So that's there. Coming back to your question, what advice I'll give to the readers? It's one question that comes to me every now and then. Like, even my friends ask, because they have lost the habit of reading. Like, how do you do it? I think there is no one method, because I don't know like what your day look like, but I would just suggest committing to 20 pages a day, 30 pages a day, starting small, picking a light book. You don't need to just pick a Dostoevsky, if you don't have time, because that needs a lot of your space.
Commitment, basically.
A lot of space of your life. When you will finish reading him, then also you will be like, 2-3 दिन तो उसी में निकल जाएगा. So it's like that. So you need to pick light books, and by light I don't mean less number of books. I mean the books that have been written in a very easy language, and you don't need to don't read to become cool in front of people, or don't think reading as a very nerdy habit. That's, I think, a lot of people do. Yeah, पढ़ने वाले तो सारे ऐसे. No, I think it's a very, very good habit that you can inculcate for yourself. So first of all, read it, because whenever you start any habit, you are going to fail like in the first week. That's
for sure.
Like, so if you're starting yoga, you will get tired after 2 days, or you will get after a week. You have to push yourself. So for 20 or 21 days, you will not going to enjoy that habit. So just make it like a more of a task. कि मेरे को पढ़ना ही है, मेरे को मजा आए तब भी पढ़ना है, मेरे को नहीं आए तब भी पढ़ना है. And after a while, when you find that right book, and you will find a right book after reading a few books, then you will know what kind of genre you like. So like I love suspense and thriller. Okay, so in my earlier days, I used to read a lot of suspense thrillers, because that's the only book I like, and I never paid a heed to people like कि बाकी लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं. ठीक है, I will go, and वो journey फिर आपका अपने आप से बनता जाएगा. Like I did not used to read non-fiction, but I started reading. मेरे को 1-2 non-fiction अच्छी book मिली, मुझे कई चीजों के बारे में पता चला. Then I was like, no, like this is something I can become more knowledgeable. I'm going to read it. So there will come a time. So just take it light. Start with a light book. Do not expect a lot from yourself. Give yourself 10 pages, 15 pages. And when you are okay reading 15 pages, then increase 5 pages, 20 pages, 25 pages. And that's how you read. And if you're not enjoying the book, you don't have to, drag yourself like कि बस पढ़ना ही है. Leave it, abandon it. कोई crime थोड़ी ना है यार कि यार ये बुक तो सबको अच्छी लगी है, मुझे नहीं पसंद आएगी. So I recently read Man Search for Meaning, which I think everybody liked. I did not like that. And though I finished it because it was like a very chotu book, I was okay. I was like, yeah, मेरे को first of all I was like asking myself, मेरे को क्यों नहीं पसंद आई? तो सबको आती है. Did I miss something? And I was like, why are you beating yourself around it? Like, you did not like it. You are a reader. You are okay. You should be okay having your own view. So नहीं पसंद आ रहा, बीच में छोड़. मैंने I read the Harper Lee की To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah. It's a classic book. Everybody likes it. First I read it, I did not understand a word. I think 30 पेज पढ़ के मैंने छोड़ दिया था. But after 4 years, 5 years, I again picked the book. I read it, I liked it because my reading habit grew, my understanding level increased, I was more comfortable with the language. So, a lot of things happen. So just abandon the book, pick any other book.
Yeah.
Read an article if you like. Yeah. So reading is not like that you have to read a novel. You can read an article, you can read newspaper, it could be anything. So just start with whatever you have. Don't invest a lot in books, like just don't buy books. Go to a friend and ask them to lend to you. So that you can develop a habit, then you can buy as many books as you want. So like that's a few habits that I will suggest.
That was really interesting. And I think that I totally agree with your points with, picking up a book, and if you're not liking it, just leave it. Pick something else that you like reading. And I do that so many times that I don't even remember the number of books I've left now. मेरे rack में there are maximum books that I've left after reading a few pages, and जो खत्म करी है वो बहुत ही कम है.
So that is what I'm telling. Like, you don't need to feel guilty of abandoning a book. Like, you can always pick it up. Sometimes you don't have the mood. Sometimes you don't understand the language. Sometimes you're not just ready for it, So it's okay. Earlier, like, I used to feel very guilty of like abandoning books because I used to think like if you pick a book, I'm a very like that. If you have started something, you have to finish it.
Yes.
But then I realized, no, you don't have to do it. Reading should be, a leisure activity. It should not be something that, it shouldn't be a task. Nothing in life should be a task. I feel because when it becomes a task, it just feels very overwhelming and it feels a lot for you. So it's okay. So I think abandoning is okay. You can always pick it up. It's okay.
Yeah. Yep. So a few things that I always recommend people whenever they come to me for advice कि मैं पढ़ना कैसे शुरू करूँ. So a few things is that, one, make a routine that you have to read a few pages, even a paragraph before going to bed. Yeah. And second is that pick a book that has very short chapters. It does not have to be like, so there are books that, very long chapters, 30 pages, 20 pages. Even I get tired of, finishing that chapter. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's very tiring. So just if you're starting to read, just either pick a short story book or pick a book that has very short chapters. It finishes in a page or two, so that you get that feeling of accomplishment कि भाई मैंने इतना पढ़ा और अब मैं आगे पढ़ सकता हूँ. And thirdly is read at least one page every day. Be consistent with what you're reading. I mean, it's not necessary that you have to finish the same book, but read every day. That's important. Like, read for like 20-30 days. I think there's this rule that if you continue doing something for 21 days, it will become a habit, right? So read for 21 days consistently and then you'll see that it will become a habit. You'll see it, you'll imbibe that thing in your life. So These are a few things that I always recommend. And now that we're talking about recommendations, I would like to know what are your go-to books, both in Hindi and in English. Like, I would love to know. I know that it's very difficult to pick books for readers because there are so many favorites. But
there are so many favorites.
What are yours?
Okay. So let's start with English, like which books I really, really love and I can pick it like anytime. So I'll start with fiction. I really love Norwegian Woods by Murakami. And that's the book, like, so I have a habit of like highlighting. So most of the time, I just go back to the pages or the highlighted parts. And just read them again, over and over again. So that's one book that I really really like. And then there is Tuesdays with Maury,
Sorry,
which
yeah.
I've read like so many times that I've forgotten like what it is like it's a very nice book, it's a very tiny book. And then in fiction, so I really write, it's not a fiction book, it's a non-fiction. It's a memoir by Becoming by Michelle Obama. I've read it like 2 to 3 times, like it's this much
Yes.
book I, because मुझे उसके कुछ कुछ पन्ने काफी अच्छे लगते हैं. And then uh, I really like. I used to like Stephen King's book a lot. Like I could pick any book. And then yeah, I really like Agatha Christie also, but I cannot read it like over and over again because it's a suspense thriller book now, and I already know who is the murderer. So
Yeah.
नहीं आएगा. ठीक है. और and
What about classics? Do you like reading classics as well?
yeah, I really love this Virginia Woolf ki No Rooms on its own. Shit, yeah, I'm forgetting that. I'm very bad with the names. No Room of One's Own, something like
Okay.
that, by Virginia Woolf. It's basically it's an essays. It's a lecture that she gave in two to
Okay.
three uh, institutions, and then they combine. So it's like essays that are there. So she talks about the struggles of women writers in 70s, 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like how they not just had the basic things, when Pride and Prejudice was written, Jane Austen wrote that book. She did not have her own room. She used to like write in between when all of her cousins were making the noise and everything, and she used to hide manuscript between her book collection. So she just tells like it was so, if she could write a classic like that with those conditions, we have lost so many good writers because we were just not gracious enough, not gracious, we were just not okay with women becoming writers,
Becoming
or
writers.
becoming.
Yeah.
So I think that's the book, and she like it's a very beautiful book. It's one book that I really like. I like the Animal Farm also, and apart from that, I like To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. That's one of my favorite books, and I can read it like anytime. I really like The Silent Patient also, though I was disappointed with the ending. But I like The Silent Patient. Have you read that book?
Yes, I
Silent
have.
Patient?
I have. I did not. I wasn't very disappointed with the ending. A lot of people have said this. So, you know what I do when I start reading a murder mystery? I don't think about the ending. I don't try to deduce the ending, and which is why I end up liking the book. Because a lot of people.
Great. I personally feel it. I read it in like one sitting, so it was unstoppable. Like for me, but I couldn't put it down. I know that, and I was not very disappointed with the ending. I know a lot of people were very disappointed. I was not very, but I was slightly disappointed, and maybe because I did not think that this is what going to happen. Maybe that. But it's a great book. It's a great book, and I think this is one book that I recommend people to start reading also because it's very interesting. And people who really like to start reading, I think The Silent Patient is a very good book to start. So that's one. And apart from that, I've read. I used to love Dan Brown at one point of my time. I have read like all his books, and Stephen King remains like one of you. You sent me the Stephen King's book, right? I haven't read it, but Stephen King is also one book that one writer that I really like. So yeah, these are like
I think. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I really like the Murder on the Orient Express by
Agatha Christie. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one book that I always like. Yeah, it was a good suspense book. Like
I have that on my shelf. I haven't read it. I haven't even started it. I was planning to read it, but then I don't know. It's been a year or two since it's there on my shelf.
That book also. Suddenly I'm remembering. I liked Rebecca. I loved Rebecca.
I watched the movie, but I haven't read the book.
Just read it. It's so brilliantly written. Like the whole character. And apart from that, the whole storyline, like I really like these kind of. I won't tell you because it has a lot of spoilers.
I watched the movie. If the movie is based on the book,
It's a
Then
movie.
yeah.
But then the movie, I have not seen the movie, but I've heard people saying that they have not made like they haven't made a good movie. But
Okay. Same goes with the
yeah,
Harry
but
Potter series, right? Like when you read the books and when you watch the
yeah,
movie, you're like, oh my god, there's a lot that they missed out on, and they could have done so
yeah.
much better. But books are always better than movies. I am a firm believer of that.
So Rebecca is one book that I would really like. If you haven't read it, just read it. I think you're going to love it. So Rebecca is one book that mystery thriller मेरे को अच्छी लगती है.
And have you read books by
Hmm,
Lisa Joule?
no.
She's one writer you should explore. Like I'm telling you, you're going to like her books. They're so well written, short chapters, big books, but books are amazing. Her storyline you'll read in one day. It's that kind of story. So she writes
I will.
very nicely. Thrillers and suspense. Her new book is about to be out on called No One Is Telling the Truth or something like that. Yeah, everybody is lying. Something on those lines. I don't exactly remember the title, but it's coming in November. Super excited for that. So I started reading her book. I started with The Family Upstairs. And
Okay.
after that, I got stuck on that writer. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to read so many more books by her.
Then I will definitely read because I think it's been a long time that since I've read a proper thriller mystery books. Honestly, I think
Definitely.
last one good book was Rebecca only. Last that I read because I love the cover of the book so much.
Yes, it's beautiful.
The-
You know, there's been so many times when I picked books before covers that I ended up, and then I end up not reading it because I bought it for the cover, but the story was something I couldn't connect with. And then I'm like, oh my god, it's there on my shelf. I'm like, ठीक है, पढ़ लेंगे कभी किसी जिंदगी में शायद.
do try reading Rebecca and do let me know. Like
Definitely,
it's a really good
definitely.
book.
What
And
about your
when it
Hindi
comes,
suggestions?
yeah, that Hindi books. I have a lot of great books in Hindi. So one book that I really like is Avara Masiha. So it's a biography of Sharat Chand. Okay, it has been written by Vishnu Prabhakar. Oh my God, he gave that book 14 years of his life and then
Oh my
wrote it.
god.
And he has never met Sharat Chand. Okay, but not even for once like you will feel that he has not met the person. And there's so much, so less available about Sharat Chand because his life was very devastating. But then he researched, and it's one book that I still read. Like it's a biography, but it doesn't seem like a biography. It seems like a story that is flowing. That's what I really like about it. I love Agya. So there's this one book, Nadi Ke Dweep. It's a romantic book. Don't read romantic books a lot. I don't know. Like I am very non-romantic in that sense, but I don't read. But now, but that's one book, Nadi Ki Dweep. I really love the whole everything. So it's by Agya. It's one of my favorite books. I Antim Arun by Nirmal Verma. And so Nirmal Verma is like one of my favorite writers when it comes to Hindi. And I think जो भी हिंदी पढ़ता होगा उनके भी निर्मल वर्मा होंगे. उनकी writing बहुत ही उलझी होती है. So of course not
Okay.
recommending to the people who are just starting, but after reading a few books, I think Nirmal Verma is someone you should pick. So that's there. And then I really like the short stories of Manav Kaul also. उनका एक travelogue है, उनका एक travelogue भी है, वो भी मुझे बहुत पसंद है. Then there are two books that in traveling that like जिनको पढ़ के मैंने travel start किया. आजादी मेरा ब्रांड एंड लोग, एंड इट इज रिटन बाय अनुराधा बेनीवाल जिन्होंने सोलो ट्रैवलिंग स्टार्ट की थी. सो मतलब मैंने वो आजादी मेरा ब्रांड तो मैंने इतने लोगों को रिकमेंड की होगी कि आई हैव लॉस्ट द काउंट. आई एम द ब्रांड एम्बेसडर ऑफ दैट बुक. बट इट्स अ वेरी नाइस बुक. जैसे अगर आपको हिंदी पढ़ना स्टार्ट करना है ना, यू कैन स्टार्ट विद आजादी मेरा ब्रांड ऑल्सो.
So it's a book based on travel, or does it like
Yeah,
make
it's
you
a
feel
travelogue.
that?
It's a travelogue. It's a
Okay.
travelogue. So there's this girl who has come like she's from Haryana, and all her life she has just seen the people, telling her what not to do because you're a girl. And now
Yeah.
she's on a solo trip to Europe with her backpack.
Wow.
And it's so good. Like there are stories. उनका second part भी आ गया है. वो इसी साल आया, पिछले साल आया था. लोग जो मुझ में रह गए. So both
Okay.
are good. Both are nice. Both are written in very easy language. So these two books are the ones that I really love. And apart from that, हिंदी में जैसे मुझे शरद चंद्र की सारी किताबें, मतलब चरित्रहीन है शरद चंद्र की, वो मुझे बहुत पसंद है। शरद चंद्र की परिणीता मुझे बहुत पसंद है। परिणीता पे मूवी भी बनी है जो,
Yes, हाँ,
वो भी
Parinda, I
शरद
watched
चंद्र
the
ही
movie.
की है।
Okay.
तो वो कुछ बुक हो गई। और इसके अलावा आई एम रीडिंग वन बुक, इश्क तिलिस्म करके, इट्स बीन रिटन बाय पूजा उपाध्याय। वो अभी की राइटर है, बट इट्स लाइक मैजिकल रियलिज्म, सो वो भी मुझे काफी
Oh.
अच्छी लग रही है। वो एक किताब हो गई। और हिंदी में देयर इज दिस माइथोलॉजिकल सीरीज स्तुति आहुति आवान करके, सो उसमें महाभारत का रेफरेंस देके उन्होंने लिखा है। आई थिंक इट्स
Okay.
वन ऑफ द बेस्ट mythological books I have read like in my life. I haven't read a lot, but जितनी भी मैंने पढ़ी है तो मुझे उसमें वो बहुत अच्छा लगा। तो
Mythology mein, I read this amazing book by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the writer, but
I'm familiar with the writer, but I name the book
Palace of Illusions. That
Parish of.
was,
मुझे I have to
yeah,
read
it's
this book.
amazing. You
I
have to
have,
read?
yeah, I haven't read it. I haven't
Okay,
read it.
please do. I mean, it's a story from Draupadi's perspective, the whole
Yeah.
Mahabharat, and it's so beautifully written. So I haven't read Mahabharat like in terms of the scripture, but I
Yeah.
have read this book and I loved it. I loved every bit of information, and then I went on to read The Forest of Enchantments. That is a book written from Sita's perspective, the whole Ramayana. It's so
Okay.
beautiful. You should definitely read it.
I
And
should
then
read.
after that, I was on a spree of reading all of these mythology books. I went on to read Ahilya, and that's by, I don't remember the name of the writer.
Also.
Ketki somebody, I don't know. I don't remember the name. But again, when I read that book, I was like, oh my god, mythology is a genre I really like. Maybe because it's
Maybe I also like. I have also realized it over the like. मैं पहले नहीं पढ़ती थी, पर मैंने पढ़ा है। So fascinating, so good.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading Malwa by Amish. वो भी बहुत बचपन में. I found it very interesting, but then I couldn't come. But I think the Palace of Illusions I should read it because it's
And I think one more one thing that connects me with these books is that these are all female people, and I am a fan of female. I mean, books that are written from female perspective. I'm unable to remember the word that we call protagonist. Yes, female protagonist is my genre. I mean, anything that has a female protagonist, I'm going to read it.
You have read this series by Larson, The Girl Who Played with Fire, The Girl Who Played with Ice. Like this trilogy. Oh my god, you have to read it. The main protagonist is such a kick-ass lady. Like I love her. I want to be like her. So that's again one book in the mystery thriller section that I really like. I just remembered it like abhi.
I would definitely pick it. I mean,
yeah.
I'm getting all of these amazing recommendations from you. I'm going to add them to my TBR. Definitely, I'm going to pick them next.
So so there are like 3 books, I guess. Yeah. So read it and you will love it, because if you love strong female independent protagonists, I think you're going to love it. And there's this one book in Hindi which I really like, Gunahon Ka Devta, which is a very famous book in Hindi. It's a romantic book, so I did not read. So it's like everybody used to recommend me. So I was like, अब तो मैं नहीं पढ़ूंगी, बहुत ज़्यादा लोग recommend करते थे.
Yes.
But then one day somebody gifted me that book, you know, I'm a firm believer when a book comes to you, like on its own, you should read. I always read the books that people give to me, because this is not something that I've asked for. This has just come to me. So I read it, and Alina, I don't cry, like, but in the last few pages, I was crying so bad. I was like, and that had been written such a long time ago. Like, अब ऐसा होता भी नहीं होगा. But then it has written so like, you know, with so much power, like that. I was crying. Like I was like, I won't cry. ऐसा क्या लिख दिया होगा? But I could feel all the emotions. So that's one book that I really like. And then there are a few books that because I read a lot of self-help. I know that people somehow don't like self-help books, but they have saved me a lot of time. So there's one book like Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday that I really like. And then there is Tuesdays with Maury is also kind of a self-help book, so I like. I'm reading Atomic Habits right now. I'm liking it. I've read only a few pages, so I don't know. I'm liking it right now. And then apart from that, I really like The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. That's one book that changed my life. Like,
It's that good.
Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma.
It's that good.
When I read it, I was at my lowest, and that book saved. So maybe I don't know. It's a self-help book. It's not like they're telling you that stuff, but it has been written in with that storytelling form, and I really feel that it's one of the beautiful self-help books I have read. I have read so many self-help books now that it has to be really good for me to that stand out in front of me, because I have read all, like I have read good vibes and everything, like, but बहुत ही कम किताबें होती हैं जो actually आपको अच्छी लगती है. I love 11 Minutes by Paulo a lot.
I haven't. Honestly, I read so much, but I haven't read Paulo Coelho yet. And that is, I don't know, so many people have said this. पता नहीं क्या है, but you know, all of these famous writers, जैसे Paulo Coelho हो गया, and even Agatha Christie, so many people have recommended कि भाई ये पढ़ो. And you know, when you said that क्योंकि गुनाहों का देवता बहुत लोगों ने recommend करी थी, तो you couldn't read it. The same thing is happening with me also. That I'm unable to pick it because so many people have said such good things about it that I'm like, या तो मैं underwhelming लगेगी मुझको वो किताब, या फिर
आप अपने दिमाग में ना इतना बना लेते हो कि अब now it has to be that good. I think that is one thing that when people recommend you a lot about something, that happens. Even about a place.
I mean, because you read self-help books, you should try Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. So this book is a collection of essays, not exactly essays, advices that she gave to people. And she used to write for a newspaper, and she used to have this column wherein people used to seek advices from her, you know, that this is happening in my life and I would like an advice on this particular matter. And she has accumulated all of that and written a book on it. And a movie or a show is going live on Hulu also on 7th of April. That's tomorrow.
Tiny Little Things.
Tiny Beautiful Things.
Tiny Beautiful Things.
Yes, and it's beautiful. Literally, it's beautiful. Every advice, it's a collection of advices on life, love, and relationships and things like that. So every advice I read, and I was like, oh my god, this is so deep. Because you know there are books that are written in such depth that you're like, oh my god, you feel it, and then you're like, अब मैं इसके आगे कुछ नहीं पढ़ सकती. It was so nice. I kept it beside my pillow for so many days because I used to read a chapter and then go back to sleep. It was so beautiful. So you should definitely read that.
I will read it. Yeah, and then there's this book that I read this year. Everything Nobody Tells You About Your Body by Dr. Cutress.
Yes,
so
Dr. Cutress.
You must have seen it on my recommendation.
Yes.
That book, everybody should read it, because I think we 90s kids, like that we don't know, at least I didn't know a lot of things while growing up about sex or my body, or you know, in general things that I should have known, that I would have looked after myself in a very nice way, and you know, I wish somebody,
better, basically.
It's a book that I will recommend everybody, every gender, to just read it, because it talks about your body parts, talks about sex, it talks about periods, it talks about everything that is considered a taboo. And that's one book, if you have not read, just read it, because I
have it on my TBR, not yet picked it, but I'm definitely going to pick it. And it's also on my TBR because of you. So you recommended it and I have it on my TBR. So there are a lot of books that you have recommended and I added them to my TBR or ended up reading them for some reason. I think I kind of connect with you on a reading level somewhere, because I like the books that you read.
Because you like suspense thriller, mythology, and I do like the same. So like the ones you have recommended, I'm definitely going to add it on my TBR, and whenever I'll have a budget to buy new books, or whenever somebody will be gifting me some book, I will tell them, gift me this book. But then I was telling about the Paulo Coelho, like you have not read, but 11 Minutes was such a beautiful book. I also like Brida. It's a spiritual journey of a girl. It's written by Paulo. It's a spiritual journey of a girl who is like very confused about the purpose of life, you know, in general. And then when she goes on that path of finding true purpose of his life, she's just caught between the purpose and the romantic relationship. And then in the process she realized there is no one soulmate for you. There could be many soulmates, and does not necessarily mean that it has to be, a romantic relationship. It could be relationship with your father, mother, friend, or any
Could
stranger
be
for that
anything.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a very beautiful journey, like a spiritual journey. I really like Brida and 11 Minutes are two books by Paulo Coelho that I absolutely love. I really love The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri.
I've read it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's a
another
very
beautiful
old
book.
book.
I
I think
don't
I've
remember
read
the
before.
story because I read it way back, but I
Yeah.
remember that I've read this book.
I've read it like recently last year only, and I really loved it. I was like, so such a beautiful, like some books they don't need to have a lot of like a major story in it, but it's so beautifully written. It is one of that book. Then there is a book in Hindi, एक दीवार में एक खिड़की रहती थी by विनोद कुमार शुक्ल.
Wow.
It's again a very brilliant book. So it's nothing. It's a story of it's a couple who is doing nothing, who is living a very ordinary life, and then there's a window in the wall that only both of them can see, and then when they climb outside that window, there's altogether a different world where they can where they
Wow.
are swimming in quarries, and they are just lying down under the moon and stars. So it's like that, and whenever anybody else come, they cannot see those things which they are telling about. So there's no story, there's no major event happening, and still you it's a very beautiful book. So that's one book that I really like. A lot of
Wow.
recommendations, I guess.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm going to make a list of all of this and I'm going to put it in my TBR. And I'm going to add it to my Instagram as well.
And
I
even
need.
one more category, biographies and autobiographies. I read a lot. Like I love to read. Like the people I love, like or the people I know. It's like for Matthew Perry's book. Because I know Chandler, so I wanted to read about it, and I think that was so heartbreaking, such a heartbreaking
Yeah.
book, and I
I
really
still
liked
follow
it.
Chandler Bing. Like after reading the book, I watched all his interviews. It was so heartbreaking. Every interview you watch, you see a different aspect of Matthew Perry's life, and you're like, oh my god, this was Chandler Bing. Oh my god, this is Chandler Bing. I've been trying to find his movies online, but I've been unable to do that because they're nowhere on Netflix or Amazon. So you either have to buy a DVD or rent that movie. I don't know how to watch it, but unable to do that as of now.
I think I will never be able to watch Friends again in the same light.
Same.
Like because I kept asking myself, how could this person be shooting at that point of time, and how he did it. And the one thing I really loved about his memoir is that he was very honest. He didn't sugarcoat himself, like he's
Yes.
he owned his mistakes, and he was like, I was doing wrong, I was an addict and everything. And I think that takes a lot of courage to write. Honestly, I read Priyanka Chopra's memoir, and I did not like it at all. Like I'm a huge fan of Priyanka Chopra. Like I don't know if I have missed any interview of her. But then I was like, भाई कुछ लिखा ही नहीं है इसमें, मतलब whatever she has written I can just watch in her interviews, like what is there she's telling me. So it was not a good autobiography for me. But this one, Matthew Perry's book was like
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
It
And
was also an eye opener because you've heard about his stories in so many different ways. People keep telling you that season 4 he started
gaining
yeah,
weight, losing
taking
weight,
drugs or yeah, and all of that you've heard all your life. But when you read it from him and when you see his journey, and the best part is that he did not give up on himself. After all of these years, he was still going to rehabs. Even after relapsing so many times, he never gave up on himself. And he still was trying to give up on alcohol, drugs, smoking, and everything. It's an
and then
inspiration.
bigger realization comes when he tells about his childhood, and you realize, okay, whatever was happening with him in at the age of 40 was the reflection of what happened with him when he was like 4 or 5 years old.
Yes.
And then the thing that he says, that fame and money are not the answers, and no one would believe who is not famous. And I think it's his story is the perfect example where you can learn, maybe these things are not the answer of everything. So I think
Exactly.
it was very good, and I really loved Becoming by Michelle Obama. I think
Yet to read that.
what I loved it.
I also have like Neena Gupta's Sach Kahun To on my TBR. I haven't picked it yet, but I think the next book that I'm going to read is going to be that. I really love her. I mean, her movies are very inspirational as well.
Yeah, even her story, life story is also very inspirational. So I think, yeah, like Becoming में मुझे सबसे ज़्यादा part पसंद है the love story of between the love story of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Honestly,
Oh, okay.
I think, but I do genuinely feel it's not a story of equals, because कहीं ना कहीं Michelle gave up on few things so that she could catch up with the life of Barack. But I think that's also what partnership is about. Like, you, not about the sacrifice, but you see, like, when someone is supporting who, like, then after that, like, Michelle Obama did a lot of work, like, after he became a president and then everything. So I think that part, I remember reading it and I just thought to myself, या तो ऐसा partner मिले, या तो single because I think it was not a fictional character, no? It has happened. It's a real story. So I think, okay, when people exist like that, you need to. So I think that became threshold for me for getting a partner, or
I
getting in a
totally get
relationship.
it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prerika, for talking to me, for being a
Thank
part
you
of
so
this
much.
amazing conversation, for talking about books. I loved every minute, every second of this conversation so much. I really don't want to stop because uh, this is a part of my life. This is my life, by the way. But Zoom is asking me to stop because it's 4 minutes. And
4 minutes.
so after 4 minutes, the video is going to end. But thank you so much. And yes, to everybody who has watched this video, if you liked it, please give us a big fat thumbs up. I would love if you could do that. And please subscribe to my channel called Melody Unix. You can subscribe below. Subscribe to Prerika's channel, Prerika Gupta, on YouTube. And yeah, let us know in the comments below what you want to watch next, what you'd like to see on my channel next. Feel free to add your comments. Tell us how you like this video, anything, whatever, and tell us what book you're reading. I'll also love to add that to my TBR. And yes, thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much, Prerika. Any last
Thank
words
you.
you want to add?
Nothing, just subscribe to her channel. She's doing amazing work, and follow her on Instagram as well, because I follow her too, and order books from her because books are of really great quality. And yeah, and travel as much as you can, read as much as you can. I think the places and books will never going to deceive you. So that's one thing that you can add. And yeah, I'll thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you, Alina, for having me on your channel. It was a pleasure. So
Thank you.